Okay, we are now recording.
We are now recording.
Thanks for agreeing.
Thanks for agreeing.
And we'll start in a little bit.
And we'll start in just a little bit.
How are you, Rebecca?
How are you, Rebecca?
Can you hear? Oh, which one?
Oh, there's two Rebeccas in here?
No.
Oh. Okay.
Maybe you have multiple identity.
Maybe you have multiple identities.
One of our disabilities.
Turning down my volume.
How are you, Rebecca?
How are you, Rebecca? Can you hear us, Rebecca?
You're muted.
You're muted currently, Rebecca. Just so you know.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes, I'm mute.
Oh, try that. Okay. Oh, there we go.
Hi, Rebecca. Can
Which-
you
hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can hear you now.
How
Yeah.
are
Oh,
you?
okay. Oh, I just dropped something. Hi, everyone.
Yes. Oh.
Can I ask you-
Sorry, David was just trying to ask, how are you, Rebecca?
Oh, I'm good. I just read something that broke my heart, though.
Hmm.
What's
There's
that?
an abundance of that these days.
Yeah.
Well, it was somebody saying that that bipolar was genetic, and that we pass it on to our children, and it's just that thing. It just broke my heart. People don't realize that they used to sterilize us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were one of the first groups started it. So if it's okay with everyone, we'll start, okay?
So if it's okay with everyone, we'll start, okay?
So next slide, check this out.
Oh, I'll use the buttons down here.
This is for the 30th anniversary of the ADA.
This is the 30th anniversary of the ADA today.
That's me with Justin Dart,
That's me with Justin Dart,
considered the father of the ADA.
considered the father of the ADA.
I'm wearing his Presidential Medal of Freedom.
And I'm wearing his Presidential Medal of Freedom.
He's bringing it to the Smithsonian.
He was bringing it to the
But I
Smithsonian.
think we skipped a slide.
Did we skip a slide? Sorry, Zoom. Something's going a little slow.
That's a gem of a picture there, David. Especially-
Yes.
It's on my wall, says David. Hold on.
I think you look better now.
He's always been handsome.
Yeah.
I agree. Oh, wait, I'm not at the meeting.
There we go.
Hi, Deborah.
I love that picture.
Last one.
Yeah, we're missing our agenda for some reason. It's supposed to be
When do
here.
we go to the
Oh, the Firefox version. Okay, sorry, hold on one second. Somehow our agenda, no, it's right there. That's so weird.
yeah,
Our agenda kits disappeared from us. Sorry about that.
maybe click to go there.
I just did.
Full,
Just wait.
full screen.
I am waiting for this to load. This is a very weird technical issue I'm having here. It doesn't like that slide. It just, oh, it's, maybe I'm like double clicking. Sorry, I'll just give us 1 second. We're real close.
Intermission.
I don't know why it's going slow. Let's, okay, I've got it. We are going to, okay, give us just 1 second. I've got this all fixed up here in just a second.
Ian is a wizard.
I'm so glad you're here, Ian, to do this and not me. I'd be weeping right now.
And that's why I'll be on the phone for the next, available for call and help for the next one. Just 1 second. We're going to go to presents. There we go. Well, there we go. Perfect.
Then the next slide.
Yep, and then always share
should
it.
be our, there we go.
Okay, so let me share it with them again. 'cause it's-
Yeah, so,
Okay, share screen.
yay!
That's a great picture, Philip.
Ah,
Yeah, I love that photo.
Okay. And then
Yay!
Okay. There you go. Anywho,
So-
Julie.
Check out my virtual background. It's a light, our virtual chalice.
So check out my virtual background as I light our virtual chalice. Oh, let's see. Or
Under stop video.
oh, right, it's down there. Okay.
Next.
We are lighting the chalice right now. Boom.
Yeah.
Chalice lit.
You what? Yippee. So yeah, I'll go through my slides briefly.
So I'll go through my slides briefly. So just let me know when we go to the next slide.
Next.
Next slide. Okay.
Next.
Okay.
So I went through the materials for the UU Mental Health Network several times.
So I went through the materials for the UU Mental Health Network several times.
And please note I helped found Justice Jones. Hi, Jones.
And please know I helped found the Justice Group. Hi, Jones. Is Jones on the call?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I thought we made
Did they not get in? Or what's going on here?
we.
Oh, hold on one second. Ah, there he is. We had the little controls hidden. Hey, Jones. We have a
Hi,
lady-
Jones.
Okay, and Diane Angster is here too.
Great. Hi, Diane.
Hi, Diane.
I'm just briefly going through my suggestions for the network.
I'm just briefly going through my suggestions for the network.
And this is aligned with Justice and Accessibility Committee,
And this is aligned with Justice and our Accessibility Committee,
but only speaking of ourselves.
but only speaking for ourselves.
So the next slide.
Okay.
And so I have a document that I emailed to all of you. Emailed to Judine,
So I have my document that I emailed to all of you, and I'll email it to Judine.
but mainly one line needs improvement.
Oops. But mainly one line needs improvement. Sorry, we went back by accident here. There you go.
That line there,
That line there,
I understand it,
I understand it.
but they would then prohibit us from sharing resources
But that would then prohibit us from sharing resources
unless we had personal connection.
unless we have.
getting right into the work.
Yes.
Yes.
Jumping right in. Roll up your sleeve, baby.
Yeah, no.
But let me interrupt just for a second and say
Go
not
ahead.
too much, but just to say I'm really grateful to be here with you, David, and everybody. It's very exciting to have a UU gathering or UUs and sympathize or whatever, and on this topic. And I'm excited and onward, ho, my captain.
Yeah, Phil, what I was saying on the agenda is I was just going to spin through this and then turn it over to you.
Oh yeah. Oh, what I'm saying on the agenda is I'll just spin through this and turn it over to you.
So next, I don't want to take a lot of time,
And next, I don't want to take up a lot of time.
but there needs to be some addition in the covenant
There needs to be some addition in the covenant
about making it clear if they speak for the whole group or individual.
about making it clear if they speak for the whole group or just an individual.
Next. And their website is terrible
And their website is terrible.
and really promotes one individual's perspective.
And it really promotes one individual's perspective,
I respect the right to have it,
and I respect their right to have it.
but it looks like it's the network's point of view.
But it looks like it's the whole network's point of view.
Next, and so obviously need a diversity of perspectives.
And so obviously we need a diversity of perspectives.
Finally,
And finally,
yeah, we need many disclaimers about whether it's an individual's point of view or a group.
and we need many disclaimers, including how it's whether it's either an individual's point of view or a group.
Next. So go back to that agenda.
Actually, okay.
So what I'd like to do is introduce my wonderful friend, Reverend Philip Schulman.
What I'd like to do is introduce my wonderful friend, Reverend Philip Schulman.
We are really blessed to have him here.
We are really blessed to have him here.
And I love you, Phil.
And I love you, Phil.
Okay, I just wanted to get my slides out of the way
I just wanted to get my slides out of the
so we
way
can have you guys talk.
so we can have you guys talk.
Okay, go ahead. Draw slideshow.
Okay.
All right, Phil, all yours.
All right, Phil, all yours.
Well, I'll share it. I can't.
I mean, Philip, sorry.
Philip.
Philip, sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you. So then I read a little, but just saying, thank you, David. No rush. And I'm deeply grateful for the work you've done here already for us. Not to mention that you've been doing, and I've been following your excellent leadership for decades. And you consistently charge in when I will say, you know, that's not possible. They will never listen to us or with some nonsense like that. And David, more than anybody on the earth, has, for me and so many other people I know, has not always the most gentle, but forcefully loving, pulling you by the collar of your neck. Not exactly, just keeping after you, you know, like not giving up and say, onward, onward. And here we are, whatever happens, you know, we are people who, again, I'll speak for myself, but I'm trusting that the people showing up here are advocates or here for the intention of advocating for liberation, for consciousness, for respect, for dignity. And we won't always see eye to eye on things, but it's my opinion, and I think shared by at least some of you, that we've got a work cut out for us, even in particular with our, what is a beloved denomination to me and is a light leader in so many ways on liberation fronts, but suffers, as every place does, with its own demons, its own history, and, you know, privilege and the blindness that can come with that. Speaking of which, if I'm a long-term student, so if I abuse my privilege or just lack the consciousness that I feel, you're going on a little, you know, you're now, you know, you what? No, I won't say it like that. But if you know, jump in where I'm not another one of, and we're doing this together. And so thank you everybody for showing up. Where David is set us a good course. Well, we want to go from here. How about, and how much time? Keeping is always something that I could use support with.
You can, we are scheduled for the hour and a half. So if you want 15 or 20, put your comments, that'll be fine.
We're scheduled for an hour to an hour and a half, so if you want to take 15 or 20 for your comments, that's fine.
If I want to what with my comments?
Oh, sorry, so if you want to take up to 15 or 20 minutes for your comments, that's
Oh my
fine.
goodness.
We're doing good on time.
Okay, but if people want to jump in, please do. But I have prepared some thoughts, as you know, David. And those were some right there. And I'm just not being polite. I think that I'd like to just go very briefly what you already said. Well, maybe actually let me frame this a little bit and make some assumptions, and I might be wrong in the assumptions, really willing to check them out. But my perspective, we represent, or at least are heavily represented by people with years of experience in what I call the movement, which is a civil rights movement, or a movement for dignity and respect, and to end fraud and violence in the mental health system. The system is not just it includes the industry, but it also includes the social system and the way we think in society about people we label as that group, and that group is, for years they would call the mentally ill. That now we have a much nicer way of being referred to as people with mental health challenges, and that's part of me really appreciates that progress, and part of me always goes, where are these people with don't have mental health challenges? Who is not concerned with mental health? Who isn't? We have, and I'm not a big fan, never have been, in an understatement of the medical model of mental health, mental mental and emotional distress, suffering, etc. Over the years, with David's encouragement too, I have learned, you can't just go, those people, they're jerks because they refer to us as those people, and they're those people. And I try to get the strength to go into the room where people's beliefs are very divergent from me, and try to hold my own and speak up. And the latter is really the challenge. And I think I'm not alone here, but I'm not assuming I know everybody, I don't see the faces anymore, and I'm sad about that. But we could, I don't know, if people wanted to, I'm eager to connect. I'm appreciative of the specific gathering. It's us. Every social change happens not only on policy and strategy, although those are essential, but to get any real change, it takes relationships. And we have some in this room, virtual room. And so I'm the, as I say, I start here with the acknowledgement and celebration and true gratitude for those of us who have showed up. And Unitarian Universalist tradition has always supported me and encouraged me as an aggregate by saying, to me at least, we're not all this or that. We don't have all the same opinions. So how can we affirm our values with the assumption that we have different theological views, and in this case, worldviews in regard to the mental health system. And so that's also a value of the peers within the movement, the civil rights movement. There has emerged another industry. Maybe many people call it a movement. I don't. As important as it is to me, I use the word movement for the civil rights aspect. But part of our thinking about it and organizing for the rights and dignity of people with the experience of the mental health system, we have always relied heavily upon peer support. And we have emerged great, wonderful, powerful, society changing values of peer support. And I have found they very much, in my opinion, not just dovetail with UU values, but I want to say our movement and the peer support aspects of our movement and the peer egalitarian lateral empowerment values of our networks has at least the potential to lead Unitarian Universalism. In other words, we have done a lot of work working as peers. David calls me Reverend. I've served 4 congregations, UU congregations as minister. Okay, where in society is there not hierarchies and stuff? We have them, you know, and we're not anywhere close to being where we throw them out and really affirm in practice the, like, not just inherent value, but in many ways, important ways, equal value of everybody. And I'm saying the people involved in our movement have that, not perfect there either, but we have a lot of experience on being, how we to be together when we don't, when we know that we have different worldviews. And I'll go a little bit further and say, it's sacred to us, or at least we have essentially affirmed and promoted that the right to make, to choose the perspective on our life experiences, our worldview, our right. David loves the song, say it for me, David, I'm the German.
Die Gedanken sind frei.
Means thoughts are free.
It means thoughts are free.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, I'm going a little lateral, or wide here, but so that was an introduction kind of way. But
I think for me, a takeaway is that UU values are resonant with our movement values to show diversity, and their network is not, but I think they're open.
So David says, I think what you're saying is that our values of peer support and UU values are very, very much resonant with one another's. And even if what the mental health network has right now isn't, they're very open to.
Well, thank you. That reflection helps me focus. And I had some things I actually wanted to say, but that was an introduction. But I was reflecting you in some ways, and what I'm saying strategically, you have named, or you've cut a suggestion here. We can change it, but and by emphasizing this right and need and value of difference, holding multiple worldviews with respect and the right for them. That yes, one, we have that in common with the red network, but two, I'm saying that is can be for us a way to probably take on and achieve important changes that I don't think everybody in the mental health network or UU world about mental health will be just jumping for joy that we're raising these issues, just the same way if we talked about race and we were people of color, you don't expect all the issues to be greeted with, oh boy, thank you for your challenges, or sexism and having women challenge. You don't expect all the guys to always go, oh boy, this is great, tell me more. So we're gonna we are here, I believe we are here in part to challenge, but you have given us a way to begin. So I'm asking us to remember that, not just be nice, but to remember this is our power. This is how we will affect positive change.
Yeah, also, Philip, even though there might not be jumping for joy, their principles and values over and over are open for civil feedback.
Even if they're not jumping for joy, the principles and their values over and over are open to civil feedback.
So, Philip, how about we do a round of intros from the other 6 folks?
Yeah, if I maybe just hopefully do super quickly. The other thing that I heard you say, not so much just now, but leading up to this, I just let it go and go. I'm rushing and I'm failing. Okay, that it was a lot.
Well, hold thought.
We'll hold the thought.
We'll have an open discussion.
Because we'll have an open discussion.
No, there are 7 other.
Oh, I know. I can say it really quickly. Is that it's in specific what I've been talking about when you named is the difference between organizing as people who are wanting to think well about people with mental health challenges, and the differences of including the voices of psychiatric survivors, the people who want to be and are very critical about the fraud and the violence of this system. That's why I'm here, and I'm hoping I'm sure I'm not alone. That's it. Thank you.
No, Reverend Philip, the main manual on the network website is by my friend Reverend Myers.
You know, Reverend Philip, the main manual on their website is by my friend, Reverend Myers.
And psychiatric survivors is never even mentioned.
And psychiatric survivors is never even mentioned.
We're going to do a round of intros.
We're going to do a round of intros.
We're looking for a brief background and concerns.
We're looking for a brief background, concerns.
There are only 7 of you, so
I think there's 8 now.
Well, I mean, besides Philip and me,
there's only 7 of you beside Philip and me.
9 total.
9 total.
So, Jones, I hope you don't mind if I call on you first. Jones, Jones chairs our church accessibility committee.
Jones chairs our church and Eugene's accessibility committee.
And I've really enjoyed working as a team.
And I've really enjoyed working with them as a team.
Talk about peer support.
Talk about peer support.
What a joy.
What a joy.
So, Jones, please lead the round of intros.
It is a joy to work with you as well, David. I'm Joan. My pronoun is they, and I am I have anxiety, traumatic stress disorder, and have ADHD, which informs some of the ways I communicate, as well as having physical mobility issues. And so I come at this from both an advocacy perspective and as well from my personal life experience. Is it okay now if I say a couple words, David?
Yeah,
Or-
that's the idea.
That's the idea.
So, you know, I keep coming back to that really powerful statement of nothing about us without us, right? That like when we're talking about disability rights, it needs to be coming from the disability perspective, not from the perspective of caregivers and parents. Their voices are important and valuable, but we always need to center the voices of the people who are affected by those rights or lack thereof. And I was thinking about some of the challenges we face, reflecting on what you two had said, that one of the challenges we face in kind of coming up with language and coming up with a way of advocating for ourselves has to do with the fact there's a lot of different perspectives. There's a wide range of disabilities and of neuroatypicalities and of life experience that fall under this. And just the fact that I call myself disabled, but some of my dear friends say that they are a person with disability or use other terms to describe themselves, even just that is something that is a challenge, but also a gift, because I think it shows what a broad voice we have together, right? And there's a wide range of life experiences around disability, around psychiatric and other disabilities, emotional disabilities, whatever category or label that identity that you think fits you. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words today. But like there are folks that have had issues that they were born with, or that came on when they were young or teenagers, or life experiences they had that they were older, or you know, had a traumatic experience that was the impetus to them identifying as a psychiatric survivor. It's a wide range, right? And I think that one of the things that we encounter sometimes in these conversations is those different life experiences. We also have different degrees of support that we've received through our lives. You know, I certainly know a lot of people, and I work with. I'm in training to be a therapist, and I have clients who are young children who have identified disabilities around emotional regulation, around PTSD, around trauma recovery, around anxiety, and then other folks live with things for a long time, and they don't have the kind of support that these kids do, with parents bringing them to services and getting them what they need. There's a difference in the degree of disabling we encounter as we encounter society. You know, I can't do some things because my anxiety is so high that being in a large group of people at times is something that I can't do unless I'm presenting, which is weird. But just like going to church is more anxiety preventing than preaching for me. And for other people, it's the other way around, right? But being in that church space is disabling for me, and it's not for others. And so it's kind of the degree of disabling we encounter. And I say it that way because I don't think it's my problem. I think it's the problem in what we assume each of us needs and what, you know, we assume is normal. And then there's also, you know, people who have other marginalized identities and have intersectionality, and kind of come at looking at disability rights with a lens that is broader or more diverse. We have multiple modes of communicating, which can impact how challenging it can be to come up with a consensus and to agree. And we also, you know, we use like I said before, we use language differently, and we can sometimes get caught up in what word we're supposed to be using instead of stepping back and saying, okay, here's a wide variety of terms that are working for us, or asking each other, what terms do we need to include in this? And I am very guilty of this. David has been a very good counterbalance to me in so many ways in the work we've done together, but especially in calling me back in when I use terminology that is inappropriate or is excluding around a lot of disabilities. So he's the one who taught me the psychiatric survivor is a term that I didn't know before. And so, you know, and I think that there is a lot of good we can do together. And I think we need to remember we have these challenges, but with each of those challenges comes a gift, because it means we have a wide variety of voices in the conversation. And I hope that made sense, because I speak much more coherently when I'm standing up in advance. And which is part of how my disability is impacts my ability to communicate with others and to be effective, right? Is that I have to that I communicate better if I have time to think through what I want to say, that I don't always I'm not always as clear as I would like to be when it's at the moment, when I'm trying to express my own thoughts. But I'm super excited that we're talking about this issue. I really think that the UUA has the world's best intentions, as do all of us, in trying to do better, and has honestly, the only reason this is a conversation at all nationally is because I've forgotten her name, but Barbara Myers, is because of Barbara Myers, who just has refused to shut up forever about the need for us to look at mental health as a rights issue and not just as a service issue. And so I'm super excited that we're bringing more voices into that conversation. I'm super excited that David is part of that conversation, because he brings this wealth of experience and decades of activism. But I'm also, you know, really excited that we're viewing Barbara as being kind of, you know, the reason her voice is so prevalent is because she has been the one warrior, and we need to change that and add to those voices and kick ass and take names. So thanks for letting me ramble. And
you did great, Jones.
Oh, you did great, John.
And I want to note that 5 years ago today,
And I want to note that 5 years ago today,
I spoke about the climate crisis at our church
I spoke about the climate crisis at our church
in the evening,
in the evening,
and there was no ramp.
and there was no ramp.
So I had to speak up from the floor.
So I had to speak from the floor.
And now there is a ramp.
And now there is a ramp.
Yeah, we just have to get back in there. So let's hear from everybody else.
So let's hear from everybody else.
Next, just unmute yourself and go for somebody who's next.
Who's next? Who wants to unmute themselves and go for it?
Okay, I'll be the loudmouth, Sandy. And hi. Okay, I'm up in the Olympic Peninsula of Washington, but I was out in Southern Cal for 44 years. I first met Phil Schulman at the Alternatives 2012. And he and someone else talked on trauma. And it was so hard-hitting. And it was the first time, that conference was the first time in my entire life that I really felt I was connecting with people who lived with disabilities, not just people who had them. They lived with it. And I was born with a official paralysis, and I knew my, my own stuff, but I mean, it was so awesome. And then in 2013, I shared a room with Tracy Love, and Phil Schulman and Tracy did a workshop there. And Phil, I think anecdotally mentioned he was a minister. And afterwards I said, what denomination? And when he said UUA, it's like, oh my God, because I had joined UU in 2012 down there. And so and the reason I found UU was that I connected with Barbara. I was looking at disability issues within the UUA on the website because I was done with all the other stuff the churches I'd been with. And I found a connection there. And fast forward from 2012 to now, I have found the alternatives, the peer movement, to be the one disability organizing that I wholeheartedly identify with. I mean, I have official paralysis, and there's a syndrome for that. I've got hearing loss. There's a group for that. I've got arthritis and whatever. There's groups for everything, but it's been the peer movement, the mental health movement, that has spoken most broadly and wholly to me, and the things that resonate most deeply with. And I became part of the board of directors for the UU Mental Health Network a year ago. And I sense that there's so much for us to do. And what you're saying, David and Phil, utterly, I hear you. I would love to see some kind of well-constructed survey that the work has to be done in developing the survey so we get authentic voices of people of their firsthand experiences, and so we can bring that to UUA. And I'm enough of a badass. I don't know if you've heard of the Badass Teachers Association, but I was on the Quality of Work Life team 5 years ago that did pivotal survey work that showed what's going on in education. I strongly believe in what is going on, because we need the authentic, respected voice. And I'm just one, and now with the COVID, I'm not much into Zoom, and I'm pretty isolated other than going to Costco and that kind of stuff. So that's where I'm at, but I'm glad to have connected here today, and I hope to see this grow. So that's it.
Sandy, what a wonderful intro.
Sandy, what a wonderful intro.
Who's next?
Who's next?
My name is Carol McGough, and since Jones and Sandy both mentioned Barbara, I'll make it a threesome. It'll be a home run. Jones said that Barbara refused to shut up, and she's the reason I joined the UU Mental Health Network. Hi, Sandy. Nice to see Sandy. We are fellow board members. I refuse to shut up in my congregation in New Jersey. And although I don't get the feeling many people want to hear me, I do facilitate a small covenant group, which consists of families affected by mental illness. Some are caregivers, some are family members, some are people with lived experience. My primary experience is as a caregiver. So when David invited me to come this afternoon, I saw the opportunity to see a whole new world open up to me. my son, who has had bipolar disorder for 20 years, does not consider himself a psychiatric survivor, but he is a social worker, so he knows a great deal about them. So he said, Mom, you go and learn, and then you can check out what you heard with me. So thank you very much for inviting me. I intend to sit back and listen and learn. Thanks. Thanks, David.
Carol. And Carol,
Thank you, Carol.
I really enjoyed getting to know you on the network calls.
And Carol, I've really enjoyed getting to know you on the network
And,
calls.
I want to say we're a safe place for diversity of perspectives.
And I want to say we're a safe place for a diversity of perspectives.
You may want to Google my essay, Let's Stop Saying Mental Illness.
You may want to Google my essay, Let's Stop Saying Mental Illness.
Yeah, just Google David Oakes, Let's Stop Saying Mental Illness.
You can just Google David Oakes, Let's Stop Saying Mental Illness.
And I'm saying it from a respectful point of view, but I'm one of those who tries to be like Barbara.
And I'm saying that from a respectful point of view, but I am one of those who tries to be like Barbara.
And not shut up.
And not shut up.
So I guess Barbara might need us to.
I guess Barbara might be the best
Anyway,
too.
who's next?
So who's next? Is it Kate, Diane?
Kate or Diane?
Kate or Diane?
I'll go.
All right.
I'm Kate Ditkoff, and I joined the group because within the last few years, I've discovered I'm on the autism spectrum, which was kind of a relief because it explained a lot of odd things in my life. But I was also interested in listening to this panel because my biggest experience with mental diversity, mental illness, whatever you want to call it, was I worked for about 17 years in the jails as a nurse in Seattle. And I think most of us know that a great deal of the mentally ill population winds up in jail because there are no other supportive services for them. And that's been my biggest exposure to dealing with people who are having mental illness problems or mental diversity problems. I'm not sure what to call it. And of course, most of the people I was dealing with were having very severe episodes, problems, homelessness, using drugs to try to cope with what was going on. So that was part of why I was interested in listening to this panel. But one of the things somebody said, and I read today earlier, I get the Sunday New York Times, and there's a big article today about the 30th anniversary of the ADA. And I was just starting to read that. And somebody else mentioned, I mean, who in the world is never going to be affected by a disability? Which of us doesn't have any disability? You know, many people, there's a lot of debate about whether you call being on the autism spectrum legitimate, of course it's legitimate, it's neurodiverse, but is it a disability? In my experience, in my life, it's a disability. It makes it very difficult for me to network. It makes it very difficult for me to form relationships with other people. And after 68 years of living and learning to cope with that and learning to compensate for it to a great degree, whatever, I would still call it a great disability. But who isn't going to have a disability at some time during your life? If you get old enough, you're going to become disabled in some way. So, you know, this isn't about, you know, some little portion of the population that has a problem. This is all of us. And just about anyone you talk to has some degree of trauma in their background. Yeah, so it's not a specialized little group. It's all of us. We're all affected by this.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Kate.
And by the way, Kate was on our panel a couple of months ago.
And by the way, Kate was on our panel a couple of months
And
ago.
that video is available on streaming.
And that video is available on streaming.
So is Jones.
So is Jones.
Who's next? Who's next? Diane, Janine, or Rebecca?
So we have Diane, Judine, or Rebecca.
And you're muted, Janine and Rebecca.
And Judine and Rebecca are currently muted, in case you didn't know.
So the three of you, by the way, you can pass.
And by the way, you can pass if you want.
But
I guess I'll go.
Diane, I want to say I've been extremely eager to hear your input. I used it for what I wrote.
But Diane, I want to say I'm extremely eager to hear your input, and I've used it for what I've written.
Right. I don't know where to start really, but I've been doing sort of, I don't know what you call it, work in mental health advocacy for a very long time. When I was 16 years old, I was with a group of young people who started a drop-in center in my town, and with high school kids who were sort of considered the troublemakers or the outcasts or whatever in the city. And we came together and we started the drop-in center, which was called the Turkey Coop. And you might remember back then that people called each other turkeys a lot. So that's why we started our drop-in center. So that's a long time ago. That was 50 years ago. And also by coincidence, I happened to be in Cambridge, Massachusetts, working at Harvard Law School at the same time David was there. And I was exposed to a lot of the ideas of the survivor movement from being there in Cambridge. And, you know, we could go down to Harvard Square and pick up all those underground newspapers and that sort of thing. And that's where I learned a lot about what people were thinking in terms of being psychiatric survivors and how they felt about the mental health system. I would say after that, though, I myself had pretty serious disability from mental or emotional, cognitive differences or challenges. And so I've ended up using the mental health system for a very long time. And in fact, the drop-in center that we started, we did that with the help of social workers who were recently hired by the local mental health center. And so that really was when I started working with professionals in mental health. But I've been through, you know, quite a lot in the mental health movement and in mental health services. And I guess I'm pretty unhappy and somewhat discouraged as to what's happened after we've been doing this for 50 years. And have been very active in the Presbyterian Church, and my husband is Presbyterian clergy. And I've been working on these same issues within the Presbyterian Church. We started long ago, we started something called the Presbyterian Serious Mental Illness Network. And then out of that, we started an ecumenical group called Pathways to Promise. And I helped found both of those organizations, but in the end, they became very provider oriented and oriented towards family members and providers. And now I think the new network they've developed that came out of the Serious Mental Illness Network
is even more oriented towards it. You know, they've like gone into some kind of relationship with NAMI, and they're very oriented towards NAMI and the medical model. And they're on this new network are some of the most progressive people in our denomination, and they just don't get it when it comes to disabilities or mental health. So it's been a very long road, and I've kind of hit the end of the road. I was hoping that maybe in the UU church, I could find something that I didn't have to be constantly sort of being that outcast or being that loud voice. And I was very surprised by the reaction I got the other day when I responded to the covenant and to the network. I did not know that there were a number of people who identify as survivors who had joined that network. So I was only going by the information that was online as to what that group does. And there's no mention of survivors or any rights or anything like that on a website. And so I kind of stepped into a trap, and I guess I made Carl pretty upset. But I don't define myself as a militant, for one thing, since I'm a pacifist, so that doesn't quite fit. But I don't really see the rights, coming from a rights perspective, as being militant. That's what our whole country is founded on, is people have rights. So I don't see that as radical, and I use the system. That's a big difference. There's a lot of people who especially define themselves as survivors who don't really want to use the system, and they want to avoid the system as much as possible. But I don't really want to do that. I would hope that there were services available for people who want and need them, and there just aren't. So we've done this for 50 years, and those alternatives aren't available. And about 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had pretty serious surgery, and I made it through that. And then about a year later, I was having a lot of difficulty. I've had arthritis for a pretty long time, and I was having a lot of difficulty with being able to walk, and I was using a wheelchair, and my hip was bothering me, and I thought, oh, the arthritis from my knees has moved to my hip. And it turned out that the breast cancer had metastasized to my bone, and I had bone cancer, and now I have a terminal prognosis. So I've kind of run out of time. And
I'm so sorry, Jan.
so that's it, like I don't have time to do this anymore. And the last 10 years, I've been taking care of my mother who had dementia. And so that was very isolating, and there was no, like, if you talk about the peer movement, whenever I would talk about being a caregiver for my mother, there was no interest in that. And I've even had people who are trained as peers, who are working. I got into a conversation with them maybe 6 months ago, where they told me that people with dementia weren't capable of having peers. So that was pretty upsetting, since I've been living with my mother and directly caring for her all that time. And my husband is 90 years old, and so he's starting to also have dementia. So my battery looks low here. So anyways, my husband is having dementia, and I think this is an area where people who say they're survivors or whatever you want to designate yourself, we are not embracing people with dementia, even though dementia has many, many aspects that are very similar to what some people experience as psychiatric disabilities. And my mother had hallucinations and delusions and serious anxiety and OCD. And I know these are all DSM things, but I don't know how to talk about it. Whatever, she had it. And we just leave people with dementia, you know, to the nursing homes, and now they're all dying.
Yeah. I just so appreciate your lifting that up, because I have been thinking about that a lot lately, because of family and friends who are living with dementia, and I just really thank you. That was really, I really appreciate that it was a thing that I had not ever heard somebody articulate before, that I have been feeling for a long time. So thank you for that gift and that reminder and that call to justice for all of us, because they are, folks living with dementia and their loved ones are often neglected when we talk about rights, and they shouldn't be. And David and I should have a chat about making sure that that's something that we are talking about in our small little church thing. But David is amazing, and I think that we are wanting to do this kind of, you know, less formal version of this gathering at least once a month, and I hope that you continue to join us.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tearing up, and I don't do that often. That was really important for me to hear. So thank you.
Diane, I know.
Can you, oh, go ahead, David.
I know years ago we were connected, no anymore.
Oh, he says, hi, Deborah here. He says, Diane, I know years ago we were connected more.
And now we're more reconnected.
And now we're more reconnected.
Please consider us connected more.
Please
Okay,
consider us
yeah.
connected more, okay?
My sister, okay.
My sister, okay?
Oh,
Please
I hope so. But you know,
call
another thing is that people don't also want to talk about dying, and people often talk to me abstractly about dying. In fact, my church, I go to a church here in Florida. I'm in Florida right now, which is also a very upsetting thing to be here and to have the COVID and to have a governor who is just totally oblivious to it. And so many people are dying, and the people who are dying are in nursing homes.
Yeah.
And basically nobody's doing anything to get people out of the nursing homes. And I took care of my mother for 10 years, and I loved being with her. She had dementia, but I loved being with her. And it was only maybe the last year where she couldn't really communicate very well, and she often didn't know who I was. But even though she didn't know my name, she always knew that I was somebody who loved her. And that's all that mattered to me. But
I send my love to you, Diane.
He says he sends his love to you, Diane.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This is a good time to hear from Judy and Rebecca.
Is this a good time to hear from Judy and Rebecca? Judine, I'm sorry.
Okay. All
David,
right.
this is Becky. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm having trouble with the audio thing, but hello, Diane, and can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm really glad to get to know you a little bit. I don't. I'm not using the Zoom thing with the thing on the screen. I have a traumatic brain injury thing that makes it really difficult to do that, but I'm working on it. I wanted to say to Diane, the good news is this, is that there's a psychiatric survivor, a pioneer person with the Hearing Voices movement named Ron Coleman. And Ron Coleman has started to do great work because he found dementia showed up at his house. And so he does what he does, and he started doing something about that. So that's the good news. And
he's a great leader.
He's a great leader in soul. But most of all, I just want to validate your soul right now, how you're feeling. That is really important to me, and I could hear that in your voice. Yeah. So
Thank you.
yeah, there's so a little bit about me. Well, I know I've known Phil and David and Jadine and some people, like I think most of you on the call, I've either heard your voice, seen you on Facebook or something, but I'm kind of here because I sort of I don't know if it's a full circle of going back to where I started, but I have I have this funny little thing on my wall. It's a degree in theology. I always, when I was involved in the ministry and I got psychiatrized myself, it was just this different experience of, people didn't know what to do with me, I guess what it was. But anyways, so then I found the psychiatric survivor movement, David Oakes. And, he told me just this wonderful thing. So this is what I think he always says about we're creatively maladjusted. Well, I remembered another fella that was creatively maladjusted, and that was John the Baptist, right? Or Jesus of Nazareth. I think often I think that if today those ideas and stuff would, actually what happened. So anyway, then I found out recently I've been involved in the movement that Phil was talking about, and my heart's been grieved over the years because it's really hard because everybody defines themselves as a peer, but some people fundamentally would have ways of living and being that are rooted in hate. And so it's really confusing. I love that somebody said, when Diane, you said, well, I'm not really a militant because I'm a pacifist. Well, I've been caught in that thing too, because, but then David Oakes said at his presentation at Peerpocalypse, that he loves everybody in NAMI, but NAMI is his enemy. So I loved that. And I loved hearing that. It gave me hope for the first time that that there might be something different brewing. That's one reason that I'm here. But so this is the deal. I like I said, I call myself a psychiatric survivor, but looking back in the history, I guess when it first started, and by two women, by the way, and it was called the Psychosis Validation Coalition. And the root meaning of the word, Phil will tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm kind of right, is that the root meaning of psychosis was the illumination of the soul. So in some ways, I actually have lived the early part of my life and most of my life not doing what they now call peer support, but soul support. And I really feel that these words are liberation, and that cognitive liberty is really important to me. Because when I had an intersection with the mental health system, they took away my access to my cognitive liberty, which took away the access to my soul, which robbed me of my identity. And it took a while to get that back. So that's kind of where I'm at, because I hear all the time that people say, they want awareness of mental health and that getting mental health services is a right. Well, what I say is that it's not right if the services that you receive are not seen through the lens of human rights. Because today I can't in good conscience hook somebody up with services when I know that there's a real big potential of them being abused and coerced within the system. So when I talk about human rights, and please somebody, because I don't have the ability to write it down, Bill or somebody, would you send me Barbara's information? Because I can't talk about where Barbara stands unless I be familiar
I
with
will.
Barbara. Thank you very much. So it's true. So I'm just maybe looking for a place that that maybe, maybe through my long friend David Oakes, when he talked, he might have said a lot of things in that speech, but I heard something that I longed to hear. Because Jesus went in and tipped over tables, and I don't think there's anything wrong with tipping over tables, but I'm really having a hard time recently because of the underlying hate, so anyway, that's about it. But anyway, so the illumination of the soul is what I think about, and liberty, that each individual might find a spiritual awakening, and that people actually start seeing whether you're whatever self-determined identity used to describe what people call depression or what people call anything, that people not forget that first of all, we're human beings. We're human beings. And when people stop looking at me as a human and start looking at me as one of these other things, then I don't know what happens, but I'm really tired, and I'm really, I've been just wrestling with this, but it's the lens of the human rights, I guess. But anyway, I want to say that I'm a member of the Psychosis Validation Coalition, which is about the illumination of the soul and the liberty of it. I'm going to add that. I think that was in there. But anyway, I love you guys very much.
Thanks, you're a wonderful human being, David says.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judine.
Thanks,
Hello.
David.
I shouldn't have waited till last. There's so many, you each have said so many amazing things. I'm glad to meet those of you I did not know before, Diane, Carol, Kate, and Jones, and appreciate what you've each shared. David, Philip, and Becca have been amazing leaders and advocates that I've known for many years. And I want to say Sandy also Sandy was single-handedly started a petition in 2010 when the higher powers in the government were going to censor a keynote speaker at the Mental Health Recovery Alternatives Conference. And she started a petition that tons of people signed. And suddenly they said, oh, well, you can have that person speak after all.
No, it was the conference. It was,
Yes.
and I remember Judine calling me, and they approved it. And it's like, wow!
Our hero, Sandy. Go, Sandy.
Yeah. So I appreciate each of you. I took care of my mom and dad. Dad had pretty severe dementia for just about 5.5 years. So Diane, my hat's off to 10 years worth. I was getting pretty tired in my experience. And I love the way you said that you loved being with your mom. And that's what my niece and nephew said when they spoke at the funeral, who also helped a lot with the care. They said they loved that new grandpa, that he was different than the one they had when they were young. Yeah.
I think my mother got liberated by dementia.
Great. I do want to say briefly, when I got introduced to the mental health system when I was leaving what I consider to be a very controlling, conservative, religious group. And as I came jumping out, and my ex-husband was a leader in that group, a good man, I got put into the mental health system. And when I came out, I just went straight to the UU, because I had friends who were telling me they believed that people could choose. They believed that women should be equal. They believed that gay people should be equal. And I'm like, that's where I want to go. And then on top of that, the the fall sermon was always something about nature, and it was about sailboats. And I was like, what? I missed a sermon about sailboats? I have to go. So I have to admit, I spend more time, not really on sailboats, although I loved that time too. I spend more time out in nature than I do inside UU church buildings. But whenever I do go to a UU church, or UU, whatever it is, I always come out thinking I learned something new, or I met someone new. And it's like what they could pack into 1 hour, or sometimes one time we stayed after talking to people and the total came to 3 hours. And I went, that's what my old church used to require of us, 3 hours. But we ended up talking for 2 hours with people we really wanted to be with. Anyway, but my bottom line, if UU has values I really believe in. And yet my experience is that a lot of the people are like paid social workers, psychologists, all kinds of professionals, and they tend to be more behind the idea of we're here to help those poor people rather than, they don't use those words, of course, they don't, but that kind of seems to be the bottom line. And my personal line nowadays is whenever we think we're there to help someone else, then there's a power imbalance that can't make it be full growth for each of us. And that we have to look at it, even though, I mean, I have to admit, I have some friends when they call, it's like, do I have time to listen to them? And it's like, you know what, I made a pledge that I'm not going to pick up the phone unless I see that person as an equal friend that I want to spend time listening to. If I think I'm just there to help that person, I'm not going to answer the phone, because I'm not doing them any gift by thinking I'm there to save them or help them, because who knows. But anyway, so that's my bottom line. Very quick, I did take a friend who was blind because she wanted to get out of that same conservative religion I was raised in. And I said, if you care about gay people and women being equal, which was what she was shouting about when she left, I said, you might consider the UU. It's just down the street. You want to go together. And so I've been going with her for more than a year. And I tell you, she walked in the door, and her old religion, maybe they were tired of her, or maybe she said things they didn't want to hear, but she would sit in a corner and read a book in Braille, and nobody would come up to her. And we walked into the UU, and people were so kind to both of us. And I couldn't believe how people would, speak to her. She's walking down the aisle like, hey, my name's River. Would you like to sit by me? There's a space next to me, and invite her, because obviously she couldn't see whether there were seats available there and didn't know where to sit. So it was like, okay, UUs aren't perfect, but they also know they're not perfect, which I appreciate that. And the church knows it's not perfect. They say they're always striving and trying to change. And somehow I believe there's an intrinsic thing in a lot of people that go to the UU organization, that they want to include everyone and be as open and receptive as possible. So. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Philip.
Welcome back, Philip.
So now we have time for open discussion. If you need to leave, we'll have other discussions in the future.
So now's the time for open discussion. If you need to leave, we'll have more discussions in the future. Do you still need me to repeat?
So, well, go ahead. If anybody has something that they felt important to share,
So go ahead if anybody felt they had something important to share.
please be brief.
Please be brief.
And we'll have an open discussion.
And we'll have an open discussion.
Philip,
Philip,
did I see you?
did I see you?
Also, yeah, you can raise your hand.
Also, you can raise your hand.
Yeah, and you can also react with applause in Zoom.
React with an applause in Zoom.
Yeah, everybody here deserves and
Everybody deserves a hand.
anyway, I'll show you.
I'll show you.
See?
Oh yeah. I didn't
So,
never see that before.
yeah, but anyway, wow, what a wonderful group. Please, someone start talking,
What a wonderful group. Someone please start talking.
or else I'll keep
Or
on.
else, or otherwise I'll keep talking.
One thing that feels juicy, there are many, but one thing a few people talk, thanks for a mention of traumatic brain injury. I have one. And thanks for mentioning about dementia. My time caring for my mother and father was far shorter than either Judine or Diane. But why I bring it up, I was some enlightenment because when I was 24/7 for a while and my mom broke her hip, ended up with skilled care nursing. When she was there, on the way there, she started talking to a lot of dead family members. And my first assumption was amazingly normal. And because I was intimately with my mom and, and spending time and caring and doing things like going over boundaries, like caring when I shouldn't have, because that's what we do. You're human, not perfect, but I did my best and it was great. I love her. It was hard. I hated it. But anyway, my first assumption was she's, dementia, she's not in reality. And I, unaware, like habitually or almost without conscious thought, just corrected her the first couple of times or something. And then I'm not so much hubris that I stopped. And then I thought for a while, and it dawns on me, and my assumption, maybe I'm wrong, but the medical system would in general, I think, assume that when this thing happens, by the way, it happens to huge amounts of human beings as they near death, that they speak and will say they are visitations by people that we think of as no longer here with us, deceased. And it dawned on me, who am I to assume that there's something wrong with her and that she's not having a conversation, and indeed that those people that I assume that she's wrong, they're not in the room, she's confused. How do I know that those people are not, that she doesn't have access that I did?
Housekeeping note.
Yeah, okay, that's good enough.
Oh, he said, Philip, housekeeping note.
Oh, I think we're okay.
I think we're okay on Zoom.
They probably won't cut us
They
off.
probably won't cut us off.
I did put
No,
it.
that's thank you.
I did put in until 3:30, but
we can
keep going.
Yes, we can keep going and going.
We can keep going and going.
Good, Philip.
Okay, go ahead, Philip.
No, there's a lot of unpacking that could be done with that one and many of the things that have been said. I don't need to unpack it. Anybody could comment, but I trust that there's a richness that I just shared and that hopefully was received by others. And just as I trust that I know that there was incredible richness shared so far and has been received by this group. That's it.
I think Zoom was nice to us.
I think Zoom was nice to us.
We're still here.
Because we're still here.
So, anyone else?
Anyone else?
Would like to
Respond?
Go ahead.
Really quickly, this is Sandy. I am so glad to be here. Okay, because it is you, David, Phil, Judy, Diane. We've connected on Facebook, and I hear so loud and clear your truth and your honesty and your bravery. And it is something, sometimes I want to say it, but I don't know how to get it out. And you say it and it's honest. And I deeply appreciate it. And another thing, I have yet to start liking Nambi. And that is as good as I can say about Nambi. I could be really blunt about Nambi, but I would probably get kicked out of everything. So what you guys are saying is right on. Okay? Take care.
Can I mention something about NAMI?
Can I mention something about NAMI?
For years, I worked to reform NAMI.
For years, I worked
To reform NAMI.
to reform NAMI.
And there are many wonderful individual members.
And there are many wonderful individual members.
But for years, they had a policy.
But for years, they had a policy
to keep today donations secret.
to keep their donations secret.
A Senate investigation showed something.
A Senate investigation showed something.
A majority of their money
Oh, yes.
was from drug companies secretly.
A majority of their money donations were from drug companies secretly.
So individuals are great.
So individuals are great.
But I know many, many, many moms and dads that want better for the kids.
So I know many, many moms and dads that want better for their kids.
They want way, way better than the mental health system.
They want way, way better than the
industry.
mental health system industry.
So anyway, this is a great talk. Go ahead, folks, or I'll keep going.
So, go ahead, he'll keep going.
Yeah. I'm in a couples family therapy program in the University of Oregon in my master's program. And one of the things that I'm really glad to say is that in many of our classes, we've talked about the issues with the term mental illness. We've talked about the issues with pathologizing and with the whole pharmacological industry around psychiatric mental illness, and using David's quotation marks, and there's still issues that we face, and folks that I'm working to educate. But I'm doing my damnedest to make sure that at least these 21 folks know that they need to approach the work of us as mental health workers as not doing and curing, but as sitting with our clients and supporting them in their own self-advocacy and their own empowerment. And I really appreciate all of the wisdom that I have gained today and from working with and reading the writings of David and many other folks. And I'm very excited about being connected to a bunch of folks who are advocating for justice and for rights that are not tied to diagnosis and discrimination based on that identity. So super, super appreciative of being here, and hoping that I can bring more of that to the program and also continue to be connected. And I hope to see y'all in our meetings and gatherings that are to come. So thank you for.
I want to very much appreciate that both Sandy and Carol represent the network board.
I want to appreciate both Sandy and Carol are
from the network.
From the network board.
I know you spoke only for yourself.
I know you spoke only for yourself.
But I know you really encourage feedback.
But I know you really encourage feedback.
So do you have any suggestions
So any
about
suggestions about
helping change,
how to change?
to help change with the network?
Oh, to help change with the network?
Do you have any suggestions?
You know, because I'm just one person on the board, I would suggest inviting the members to a discussion, because I think so many of you that are here, as I looked, you've got so many years of work behind you, credible work and effort behind you. So you speak with authority, and I think it will be really good to have a dialogue with as many of the UU mental health network as possible, to bring these ideas up and to talk about them, because change is difficult. You know, I mean, even starting to talk about mental health, I mean, where I came from, I remember when I called the doctor, or no, the pastor, when I was in a psychiatric hospital, and he says, usually people don't want others to know that they're there, you know, and that was his response. And so we are moving the awareness up, and I think there's much to be gained from a dialogue. So I mean, that's what I would suggest, but I'm just one person.
I have a slide here about encouraging feedback from anybody who watches this video.
David?
Oh, I have feedback. What was that? I'm sorry.
This slide
This slide
is to encourage
feedback
from anybody who sees this
for
video.
anybody who sees this video.
But go ahead,
Go
Rebecca.
ahead, Rebecca.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Rebecca.
Oh, yes. Is it Jones? Is that right?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Jones.
Yeah.
Like the last name. Yeah.
Also, I just, again, want to send prayers your way, and remember, you're in a master's program coming up against a system that is needs enlightenment, and sometimes that's really hard to do. So bravo for that. Bravo. So one thing I was thinking about, because actually I need to become educated on the UU, you know, and this committee, and you know, maybe does it mean, I like this idea of unconditional unity in this committee, you know, because we talked about a lot of things. But anyway, what I was thinking about is that I always say people think that I'm just anti-psychiatry, although there's a lot of that in me. But I always say that we all should talk about this thing called psychiatric oppression, because we all should oppose psychiatric oppression, especially psychiatrists. And I think that sometimes people don't really have an understanding of what that means. And of course, with social justice, people are very tuned into oppression, but sometimes they just don't know what it means for those people that have experienced psychiatric oppression. So I think that's an important point, is that people just don't know what the term means, don't have any idea what we're talking about. And then also sometimes I get involved with different kinds of organizations or whatever, and sometimes there's not clarity of purpose as to you know, where we're getting at together. So we get on all these, go down all these trails, and you know, everybody gets frustrated. So that's one thing that I think about, is with consensus, you know, where is it that we agree, and what are we going to, you know, what's going to be the focal point. But anyway, that's just the thing, is that you know, we all should be concerned and educate people on psychiatric oppression. in this whole peer delivered service industry world that I'm in, somebody got in our state got a technical assistance grant. And the person doing the training on diversity listed all the oppressions, you know, and was training people about all those. And there was nothing there about psychiatric oppression, you know. So and this was a group of us. So I stood up and said, why isn't psychiatric oppression on the list? You know, I think that's one thing.
Rebecca,
go ahead, I'm done. Yes.
York, thank you. I want to mention something.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Rebecca. I wanted to mention something.
The UU Church of Eugene Accessibility Committee.
The UU Church of Eugene Accessibility Committee.
We meet every month.
We meet every month.
On a variety of topics.
On a variety of topics.
But when the last Sunday of the month is the 5th Sunday.
The last Sunday of the month, or 5th Sunday.
When the last Sunday of the month is the 5th Sunday.
Or when the last Sunday of the month, when it's the 5th Sunday.
We try to have a public forum.
We try to have a public forum.
And that'll be true next month.
And that'll be true next month.
So, Jones, perhaps you and I could talk about having a forum about this topic next month.
So maybe we could have a topic, a discussion about this topic next month.
A forum.
A forum.
Also, the network is looking for board members.
And the network is looking for board members.
New board members.
New board members.
In next few weeks. Keep that in mind.
In the next few weeks, so please keep that in mind.
I don't know how many they're looking for, but they are.
I don't know how many they're looking for.
I want to thank you all for being part of this.
Well, I said thank you all for being part of this.
Any concluding thoughts?
Any concluding thoughts?
David, this is Carol. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would like to add a little something to what Sandy said. You asked whether anyone from the network, meaning the two of us, had anything to add.
Mm-hmm.
And listening to all of you today, you have a reservoir of knowledge about each other, of trust, of interest, of years, in some cases, of working together. It is wonderful and has developed into a very supportive relationship. That is something that hopefully the UU Mental Health Network would have, but we are brand new and we come from all separate places, and we are slowly but surely building this solid foundation that you all seem to have. I mean, I'm looking at the smiles on people's faces. You know, David opens his mouth and 3 or 4 women here just break into big smiles. Obviously, his adorable face and his years and years of advocacy, there you go, okay? We are not, hopefully we will get to, yes, hopefully we will get to that point, but we are not yet. That's one piece. The other piece is that we are still with the nuts and bolts of how to become a 501c3. It took me 3 weeks to get through my bank and PayPal and talking with Carl and talking with Barbara. And finally, if you'd like to donate, you can donate through PayPal. So all of those nuts and bolts of an organization are still not, that dust hasn't settled. The IRS and all their wisdom during COVID, yes, indeed, grant us nonprofit status, but we're in the wrong category. We're in a category of organizations that supposedly has at least donations of $25,000 per year from private people, neither of which is accurate. So that's 2 things. And the third thing is, please, 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 if there's anyone in this group who is interested in joining, it is free. You don't have to push the PayPal button. Just go to uumentalhealthwork.org. And from my perspective, as the only caregiver, as Carl has said, there's one caregiver, I'm it, okay? The only caregiver on the board, I know very little about psychiatric survivors, okay? My son, who has a mental illness, doesn't fall into that category. He puts himself somewhere else. So all of this is brand new to me and quite interesting. And and a voice or a piece of a voice or whatever you prefer to be called that needs to be heard in the UU world, okay? So please come and join us, join the group. Shout as loud as you want. UUs are never, ever quiet. And so that's what I have to say. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Carol.
Good night, all.
And be sure to Google David Oakes says stop saying mental illness.
Thank you, Carol. And be sure to Google David Oakes says stop saying mental illness.
And now, well, they tell us I extinguished our virtual chalice.
And now we've extinguished the virtual chalice.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Okay.
Good
Bye,
night.
Phil.
Bye.
It's Philip.
And nice meeting you.
Nice.
Remember the lip and Philip.
Remember the lip and Philip?
Pay him more than
Pay him
lip
more than
service.
lip
It's Philip.
Pay him
Philip.
more than lip service. You're so
Thank-
funny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jones, thank you.
Thank you, Jones, too.